Good morning. Today we're going to talk about a poisonous plant that you can eat. And that sounds a little strange, but there are a lot of plants like that which have some poisonous parts to them and some edible parts. Solomon seal is one of those. The berries on Solomon seal are poisonous, whereas the roots and the early spring shoots are edible. I've read that the leaves are not edible after the early spring, and I'm just going to take that guidance for granted and not eat the leaves after the shoots have started to spread into leaves. So I've been growing Solomon seal for several years. I got my first variety of Solomon seal at a plant swap a few years back and started growing it in my yard. It was not a large variety, and so I never really had a whole lot of hope for this being an edible in my garden, but I had some shady spots and I wanted to fill in. And one of the great things about Solomon seal is that it is a very, very shade tolerant plant. It's up there with the hosta. Maybe it's even more shade tolerant than the hosta and even ferns. It's one of those things that you could plant on the north side of your house where you get almost no sun at all, and still it will probably do all right. I don't know how much sun it can tolerate, but the version that I have, the variety I have, is out in my ordinary garden. It probably gets half a day of sunshine and it's totally fine with that. So this small version, I decided I would try eating the early spring shoots last spring. And I found that there's a very small window of time between when they come out of the ground and when they leaf out. But I did manage to catch them at that point. I didn't have too much to harvest because, like I said, it's a very small plant, this variety. And so I snipped off a couple of the shoots as they were coming out, and I steamed them like I would with asparagus, for instance. And this is actually it's related to, apparently, it's related to asparagus. Anyway, so I steamed them and tasted them, and I found them to be very strong in flavor. Now, I don't know if this is true of all varieties, but this particular variety of Solomon seal that I had, which I think may have been a wild variety that somebody brought to their garden and then started giving out, this particular variety was very strong flavored. If you have ever tried eating hosta, it was like hosta with a whole lot more of the same sort of bitterness. I really preferred hosta, so I didn't eat too much of this particular Solomon seal. I have not dug up the roots. Now, the roots are used for medicinal purposes, and so I haven't tried this in any way, shape, or form, but from what I understand, the roots can be used to make creams and can also be used to make tea. The creams are supposed to be very good for your bones and joints and ligaments, things like that. But, I'm not a medicinal herb kind of person, so I'm not the one to ask about that. But I do know that the roots are edible. So I went seeking this summer. I went seeking a larger variety of Solomon seal. And if you start looking online and, well, in gardens around, in shade gardens especially, you might see Solomon seal. And you might note that some varieties are larger than others. And so I have, in the limited research that I have done, I've found several different varieties that are larger. And I was just on the cusp of purchasing one of those when I was taking a walk on Cape Cod, and I saw this patch of Solomon seal by the side of the road. It was probably about 4 foot by 4 foot, and this was the middle of the summer. The Solomon seal was 3 or 4 feet tall. I mean, it was gigantic, at least in comparison to the variety that I had, which, tops out at about maybe 10 inches. So I decided that I was going to dig some up right then and there and bring some of the roots back. And I also brought back some seeds. I scattered the seeds in a shady spot in my yard, and I have put those root segments in as well. And so we will see what happens there. I'm optimistic that I will be able to within a few years, start harvesting a larger variety of Solomon seal, and maybe the roots will then be of use to me, because honestly, with the smaller versions, not so much. So if you are looking to add Solomon seal to your garden, then you need to look for a larger variety. So there's giant Solomon seal, and I think there's one that's referred to as like King Solomon seal or something like that. And it's definitely going to behoove you to look for a larger variety if you want to use this in your diet or for medicinal purposes. The clump that I took this root segment off of, and also some of the I'll put a picture up here of this. Some of the leaves, like I said, it was fairly large. The roots themselves were, you'll see in the picture, but if I remember correctly, probably about that big around, and they were like a large ginger in terms of size and shape. So this was pretty exciting to find, and also made me realize that this type of this variety of Solomon seal could potentially be used more for making tea and things, because you would have so much more of it, whereas the small variety, it hasn't spread much. It's been out there for quite some time. It's spreading, but just not fast enough. And I think when I dig those roots up, I'll probably find that they're, maybe the width of my pinky finger, so just not substantial enough to do anything significant with. So you will want to look for that. And like I said, this is a terrific plant for your shady spots. It's perennial. It is quite hardy. I'm in zone 6B, but I know it goes into colder areas than that. So this is a great perennial edible to add in your shade garden. And people are always looking for this combination. What works in a colder climate, what is works in the shade, and what is perennial and edible. So you get this is a kind of a home run with respect to that. We're going to have to see with my version, and I will update you on this in future segments, but it's going to be a while, about how the roots turned out, and also how the spring shoots are on this version, and whether or not this is something that I will be adding to my food repertoire or not. If you like bitter flavors, then the spring shoots might be right up your alley. I like some bitterness, and I do enjoy, like I said, hosta shoots have some bitterness to them, but not an extreme amount of bitterness. And this was definitely more on the edge of extreme. Also, when I taste bitter flavors, I immediately think maybe this isn't something I should be eating, because bitterness is often the flavor of alkaloids that are in many foods. And so that can be a signal that what you're eating might not be something that you want to eat lots and lots of. So I tried it, wasn't so fond of it. If I really liked it, I probably would have eaten more. As it stands, that variety I probably won't. I will experiment more once I get a larger variety, and we will see if I can convince myself by trial and error, and tasting this over time, little by little, maybe building up the amount that I'm eating in a safe kind of way, then I might eat it more regularly. It wasn't disgusting. In fact, I've eaten a lot of, because I try a lot of interesting foods, I've eaten a lot of things that I really didn't like. It was okay. It just, that bitterness made me, it gave me pause, and so that was what slowed me down there. And I'm going to try some other versions, other varieties in upcoming seasons, and see if I can find one that I like better. I think everybody probably has some shady spots that don't have much growing in them, and so this will be something that I can add to those. And even if I decide that It's not my favorite food. It's always good to have something in the ground, just in case you need, in this case, you need the medicinal properties of the plant. So that is the story. That is my experience with Solomon seal. The berries, like I say, are poisonous, so don't experiment with too much above the ground on this plant, except potentially in the spring when the shoots come up. And as always, with a new plant that is not commonly eaten, take it slow. Try a little bit, see how it settles, see how you feel, because with the potential of perhaps being allergic to a new food or less tolerant of it, you really don't want to put yourself into a dangerous situation. I hope you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I would love to see you on Food Forest Garden Club.org. That's foodforestgardenclub.org in case you missed it. And hopefully I will hear from you in the comments below, and let me know, please, if you have tried Solomon seal, what you think about it, what you've done with the roots, what you have done with the spring shoots, and if you have found any use for the rest of the plant. So thank you very much. Have a great day.